sure I'm PLC on Allen Bradley Artist Logix 500. Now, there's a new version of Artist Logic out. It's Artist Logic 5000. And we've got it, but unfortunately, we've only got 3 or 4 PLCs that have the ability to run that. So we don't use that, but it's very, very similar as far as when you start reading up on the 5000. But how you connect to it might be a little different. Like the Siemens package, the new Siemens software, the Total Integrated Automation, it'll find the PLC for you. It's really, really neat. So it'll actually set it up. What we do on Artist Logic or Artist Logix 500 is we use an application. Now there's still a lot of PLCs out there running 500, right? You understand? All the 1000s, the MicroLogic 1000, the whole 504 series, which is basically the 504 is considered to be obsolete. You can still get modules for it, but it would be hard to buy the actual CPU now. Okay, because this is one of the first PLC trainers. When we went to the Allen Bradleys, these are the first PLC trainers that we bought, and I don't know how long that's been. The 1000s are their cheapest version now. They still sell those, the MicroLogic 1000s, but they're very limited. They're a basic PLC. Them things only cost about 150 bucks. So basically, you can't change anything. What you see is what you get. So you can't add subroutines. I forgot how many is available to you, and we're going to talk about subroutines. You can't add additional data files, and there's a lot of things you can't do. Then they got the 1100 series, which is what we have, which would be the 1200 series, the 1500 series. Those are still available. Those still program under Artist Logix 500. Okay. And those are what I call hybrid PLCs. And what's a hybrid PLC? According to me, that's which is. Yeah, you come up and you have a bunch of fixed ports, and then you can add on to them by snapping modules onto the side. So these guys do not have a back per se back plane, and they don't have a rack, right? You understand? So you get these DIN rails right here, depending on what type of PLC. There's several types. They got what they call a D, a C. This right here is called I can't remember, winged, I think. These are pretty standard. These you just put a new module on here, and then you snap the side, and you come in and attach it to it. I must have carried that back. I carried that back to the shop. The 1200 that we had set up. So what we do first on this one is we're going to run RSLinx. And this is important because this is where you would, since these PLCs have so many ways we can interface them or connect to them, the predominant way is, of course, is the data highway 485, right? Understand? And this can either use this DIN connector, which is the round connector, or it can use what we call the DB9 connector, which is what the 504 uses. But both those are DH485. The other way that they're going to, of course, is Ethernet IP, which is the industrial version of Ethernet. And that would be the, yeah, this will be what we call an RJ45, which is a 8-pin slide-on connector or a snap-in connector. Very similar to, it uses the same technique that your phone jacks use. You know, people that still have wired phones at your house. That's an RJ11. RJ45 is the same style, so it snaps in. You have a little hook mechanism on it. You push it in, or you don't have to push it in. You have to push it in to take it out. And of course, those break off all the time.
Are they the same pinout?
As what? No, the RJ11 is only a 4-wire connector.
RJ45. So in here, same pinout as the computer?
Yeah, same pinout. So we have a straight through cable that we would use to connect the PLC to like a switch or a router. Y'all heard those. And then we have what we call a crossover cable, The problem with computers and PLCs is they both consider themselves to be DTEs. So a switch or a router is a DCE. So on a DCE, you use what we call a straight through cable. And so what you have, you have two pairs, or you have one pair that's used for transmit, you have another pair that's used for receive. Well, when you go from a DTE to a DTE, both of them's trying to transmit on the same pair. So what you have is you build what we call a crossover cable where they swap the two. So when I hook this thing up directly to that computer, to this guy, I cannot use a straight through cable. I got to use a what? Crossover. And the pinout, by the way, is in the MicroLogic 1100 manuals, which are up on Blackboard site. It shows you how to build both a crossover cable and a straight through cable. It's even true on the Siemens. The Siemens predominantly the new Siemens predominantly use Profinet, and that's the same thing as Ethernet IP. It's just another version, is what they call it. And they do the same thing. So if I was going to go from the PLC to a switch or a router, then you use a straight through cable. If you're going to hook it directly to the PLC, then you have to use a crossover cable. That makes sense? So I'm looking for Rockwell software down here somewhere. And then I'm going to, not Real Player Rich, Rockwell software. And then I'm going to run RS Links. Now RS Links, you can put it on your desktop or in your taskbar. It doesn't make any difference, but you only need to use it probably the first time, right? And then you go to communication, and you'd say configure driver. And this is where you would add drivers, and you can see RS Link supports a lot of different ways that you can connect to your PLC. We have two ways. We can connect through Ethernet, or we can connect through the DH485, which is what we're going to do. So I'm going to come up here and configure it. And I'm going to hit auto configure, and it's okay. So it found the PLC, everything's okay. So if you hit auto configure, then what you probably need to do is when you use your adapter, we call these dongles. The computer dropped the RS-232, which is basically what we're using. It's not called RS-232 anymore. It's called EIA-232. We dropped that port a long time. That was a DB9, just like this on the 504. It was a DB9 connector. Well, that sucker took up so much room that they dropped that a long time ago. Now the predominant way we connect peripherals outside our computer is using the Universal Serial Bus or USB. So you can buy these dongles right here that automatically take a USB and converts it over to the old formats. So the 1284, which was the old parallel port that we used to have, you can go through these dongles and adapt it over. So that's what these are that y'all see on every one of our PLCs down there, is you see one of these. That's not true. Some of our old computers back in the back has a DB9 port on it. So if you were back on the other ones, besides for the all-in-ones, you would look at that cable and it plugs directly into the computer. If you're up on the all-in-ones or the new HPs, then it's going to have to go through to that dongle. Everybody understand that? You can buy these. You could probably buy them at Best Buy. They probably stock them down there. So, okay. So what you would do is if it comes up and says it can't find it, then you have to go in the control panel, and when you plug it in, you see which COM port it adds, and then you come up and do that. You know what I'm talking about? Some of y'all do, some of y'all don't. So this guy looks okay, so I'm going to come up here and I can exit out of this now. So I'm going to say okay. And then now when we go to now when we bring up a Logic Pro, we'll see if it shows up. But right up here under comms, you'd say, who's online? And then it'll come up and it'll show you that my 1100 is where? Online, and it's connected out here. So 00 is the computer. So that's my computer, so my computer's online. And also MicroLogic 1000 untitled, so that PLC doesn't have a name. Right, what I'm saying. So these guys are ready to be communicated with. Are we okay? So I'm going to come up here, and when you do this, what it's going to do is it's going to download whatever's in the PLC. So this is what's in the PLC right now. Okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go offline. And we don't want to save that. And it's going to do it again. So what I need to do is I'm going to open one. No, I don't want to do that, Rich. I want to open one. I want to open one. I'll get my finger sneaked up here in a minute. And we're going to look at the desktop, and then we should have a couple of programs on here that I wrote during the weekend called underflow, overflow, or overflow, underflow. Yes. No. Okay. So this is one I wrote. By the way, these are rung comments. So to add a rung comment, you just come over here to the rung, and then you can just put what? Edit comments. And this allows you to, especially if you're going to have a program that you, if next time I teach this class and I load this program, I'm going to say, what in the world did you do that for? All right. So I made these comments. So we have two counters. And what I've done, or what I'm going to do, is I'm going to load them pretty close to their limit. So I have an up counter, and I have a down counter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to count them both at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download this into the PLC. By the way, when you download something into the PLC, you lose all your comments. So it don't need comments in the PLC, right? It don't need symbols in the PLC. So what that means is if you upload from the PLC and you get a program back from the PLC, then none of your comments or anything is going to be on what comes in. So let's see what we got. So what I've got is I'm using a switch here. So let's see which one I'm using. So here I've got two things, and you can't see it. I got to turn it to the left. So this is wired. The PLC is wired so I can use these switches right here, and then these are my outputs over here. So we'll show you how to hook this up. So I'm using on my counters. I'm using a 2 down counter. I'm using an up counter and a down counter. Right? You understand that? Now, what's the range on these counters? 32,767 on positive, minus 32,768 on the negative. The problem with Logic Pro is Logic Pro don't honor that. It'll set the overflow and underflow flags, but it don't show you what actually happened. So this is actually what happened. So notice what I've done is I've loaded this guy. I've already loaded this accumulator one, 32,759, and I've loaded this one a minus 32,759. And I'm gonna come up here and start flipping switch 0. Oops. Oh, I gotta turn on. Oh, I gotta plug it in. Yeah. And then you gotta plug it in real bit. Okay, so look what's going to happen. So that's 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67. Now watch what happens. It went what? It went minus. So I just exceeded the range of the numbers, and it made the most significant digit go to a 1. Now this one, we go 1 below. So what's going to happen? So it told me I had a what down here? I have an overflow. Okay. And then I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to come up here and go 1 more on my negative. And what did it do? It turned positive. So when I showed you this on Logic Pro the other day, it just kept going, right? You understand? because it's using a computer. It's not using what's in the PLC. And this computer could probably count up to who knows what, right? And so what he didn't do when he wrote it, he didn't make it actually go what's going to happen, right? You understand? So what happened is what? My positive number now thinks it's what? Negative. And my negative number now thinks it's positive because we went into the sign bit. Y'all understand that? Okay, Christine, you kind of. Well, what we do on 2's complement is we sacrifice the most significant bit as the what bit? The sign bit. Well, if I count, eventually I'm going to count up. So if it's a 0, when I count up to 32,767, when I go one more time, it's still going to count. But now the most it's got to count, it's got to use that most significant bit. So it comes up here and puts a 1 in the most significant bit, even though it was originally a what? A 0. And what did it just do? Change the signs. So the PLC says now it's a negative number. Well, when I start counting down, originally I'm going to get to 0, right? You understand? And I count one more, then what's going to happen? Well, it's going to change. I'm sorry. I'm going to count, right? With the bit set, I'm counting. It still count. It looks like it's counting up, but eventually it's going to carry over and make that 1 a what? A 0. And I just changed the sign. Y'all understand? So I mean, I can do it with I don't see my PowerPoint. Let's get it from here. So what we're saying is I'm using 4 bits. So how many combinations would I have with 4 bits? I'd have 16 combinations, right? Okay, so here, this would be what? This would be considered positive. Then I count. So I'd go to 1, and then I'd go to 2, and then I'd go to what? 3, and then I'd go to 4, and then I'd go to 5, and then I'd go to 6. I'm counting up, right? You understand? Then I would go to what? 7. Then I would go to 8. What just happened? Yeah, this is our sign bit right there. It changed from a 0, which says it was positive. Now it's going to do what? Think it's what? Negative. And the counter will keep counting. I mean, I can go back and you'll see it keeps counting, but now it'll always consider it negative unless we got some type of indication. So what would just happen is my overflow bit would have just what? What did you just say it, right? You understand that? It's the same thing true if I'm counting down. So I start off with this, right? You understand? And then I count down. What would it go to? So this is 8. Then it would go to what? Well, we can do it this way. Now this right here is actually a minus 8. This would be a minus 7 using 2's complement. And this right here would be minus, this would be a minus 6. Yeah. And I'm just going to count. This would be a minus what? 5. This would be a minus what? 4. This would be a minus 3. I didn't skip any. This would be, I know I skipped a bunch. Yeah, but I can just count again. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right here. And that would be 8, right? This would be 9. This would be 10. This would be 11. This would be 12. This would be 13. This is not the negative. This would be 14. I was doing it right. And this would be 15. Well, this right here is a minus 8. This right here is a minus 9. This is right here is a minus 10. This right here is a minus 11. This is a minus 12. This is minus 13. I'm going backwards, guys. So I'm going to confuse y'all. I'm counting up. I'm supposed to be counting what? Down. This would be a minus 8. This would be a what? Minus 7. This would be minus 6. This would be minus 5. This would be a minus 4. This would be a minus 3. This would be a minus 2. This would be a minus 1. Now what happens when I count one more? Yeah, then it's going to go back to this. And now it thinks it's a what? Now it thinks it's a positive 0, even though 0 has no sign. Now I know y'all don't understand this because it uses something called 2's complement. And 2's complement is kind of strange. And I'm not going to get into it. It uses what they call 2's complement. What's really, really neat. So if I was going to add signed numbers, and I add a negative 3 and a positive 5, what would happen? So this would be a positive 5. And this would be a negative 3. Now, if I was to do this in math, if I was to add a negative 5 and a positive 3, then what would I come up with? I'd come up and get a positive 2. Right? You understand that? So I'm going to add these together, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ignore any carries out of this. So this would be 1 plus 1, that's 0, with a carry 1. This would be 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, right? This would be 0 with a carry 1. That would be a 0 with a carry 1, and I ignore my thing, and I came up with a positive 2. And that's 2's complement, right? So we could use any number I wanted to, and I can add them together, and it would give me the right answer. So if I did a negative 5 and a positive 3, it would come up and give me a negative 2, and this is what we call 2's complement. And it's a form of doing math without a sign. So we add. All we do is add. Well, we could do the same thing with decimal. Let's say I wanted to represent a negative 5. Well, what I would do is I would come up here and subtract it from 0. Now let's do a negative 4. So I would come up here, I'm going to come up here, I'm going to subtract from 0, so I'm going to generate a bar, right? So what would this be if I generated a bar? It would be a 6, right? You understand? So I could add a plus 5 to a negative 6 to a negative 4, and then it would come up and give me 11, and I ignore my carry. And it came up and gave me plus 1. See that? So this is called 10's complement math. And all you do is just subtract from 0. So I could take my positive number and subtract it from 0, generate a bar, and I could come up here, and now I can do math. I could subtract by addition. So people don't understand that. Computers don't subtract. They subtract by addition. So if I tell it subtract, it takes the 2's complement of the second number and adds them together. That's all it does. Which is pretty good. I know it gets kind of confusing, guys. But what happens is what I wanted you to see is what would normally happen if I count. If I count past, if I start trying to use this most significant bit here, then it's going to do what? It's going to overflow, right? You understand? Or it's going to underflow.
If I were to go back and come into memory the addition rules that are in chapter 3, I think, or whatever, that's what you're using essentially now, the one and the carries and adding the binary numbers and all that.
Yeah, but what we do when we use 2's complement is we ignore the carries out of the number of bits that we're using. So if I'm using 16 bits, then if I carry out of the 16th bit, we just drop it. And that's what the computer does too. Okay. But what it does though is you lose, when you're signed numbers, you lose your most significant bits. So even though I had 16 combinations, what happens is I'm using signed numbers, I only get 15 of them, right? You understand? I'm sorry. I get 7 positive and I get what? 8 negative. But it's going to add up to be 15 instead of 16. So what just happened in the real life is as soon as I exceeded those numbers, what happened? It overflowed. Now the problem we have is that those overflow and underflow bits, guys, they are there. So I can come back and I can reload my counters. So how do I reload my counters? With switch 1. And what happened to these bits? So now I don't have an overflow, but what happened to those? They stayed set, right? Understand? So how am I going to clear those suckers? Huh? We could reset the counters, right? You understand that? We can reset the counters. So down here I can reset the counters. Let's see which switch I'm using to reset the counters. So I'm using switch 2 to reset the counters. So as long as the counters are counted, they'll keep counting. It's just now, and the count is going to be right. So the count's going to be right, but the sign is wrong. You understand that? So these counters, they'll count all the way up to 64,575, but as soon as you hit that overflow, the sign is wrong, right? You understand? So you could use this. All you have to do is just figure out how to change the sign. See, the counter's still counting. The down counter is still counting what? Down. The up counter is still counting what? Up. So these guys keep counting, but the problem is now the what's wrong? The sign's wrong. So if I had an indication that the sign was wrong, then we could compensate for that, right? Understand that? And of course, as soon as I reset them, which I said with which? Now that resets them. And then what I could do is I could reload them. So I loaded them with the values that I wanted, right? You'll see that. And how did I load them? Yeah, so there's the move instruction. All right, okay. Another thing I wanted to show you was how we could increase the range. So what's the range? Our counters are going to change signs if we ever get up to one. Yeah, right. So what if I needed to count to 1,000,000? I didn't want to do that. Good. We'd cascade them. But what would cascading do? Huh? Yeah, so this is what we're doing. And I'm going to use an F8 register. What's nice about an F8 register is that's the floating point register. And this basically, it's a 32-bit register. It's a long word. But the problem with the F8 register is that as soon as you get above so what we got is we got a 32-bit register. They use 1 bit for the sign. So that means I get the full range. They've got a sign bit. And then they use 8 bits for the exponent. It's powers of 2s, by the way. It's not power. This is scientific notation relative to 2. So we don't have 1 times 2 to the 10th. We might have 1010 times 2 to the 7th, right? You understand that? Okay, and that's the way this guy uses scientific notation. So what it ends up with is we end up with 24 bits that we have the ability to specify the number. So So as long as I stay below this number, then it don't start truncating. It don't start dropping bits. So it's going to be 2 raised to the 24th. So I can accurately keep counts up to 2 to the 24th, which would be what? 16,772,216. As soon as you go past that, so all these would be 2 to the 0. So this would be the actual number. As soon as I go past this number, then it's going to be 2 to the 1. So what's going to happen is you're going to lose your least significant bit. If you lose your least significant bit, then your number is going to be rounded, right? You understand that? Yes, that makes sense. And then if you count again, then so the further you count, it's going to start using the scientific notation. But the further you count past that, in groups of this number right here, you'll lose 1 resolution, and that's what we do on scientific notation, right? You understand that? So we're not going to go that far. So I'm going to show you how this works. So I have 2 counters. Right now I'm going to start counting in tens here. And then my second counter, it's going to count to 10,000, which is well within the range, right? You understand that? Then what I'm going to do is by the way, if you reset a counter with the reset and it's a count, then it automatically goes by 1. So what I did to this is, instead of resetting the counter, what did I do? I just moved 0 into the accumulator. So that means it'll roll around with 0 every time. And then what I do is I take counter 1 and then I multiply it by the preset. And what that's going to do is going to take counter 1 and move it over to the tens position, which is pretty neat. And then I'm going to add what? I'm going to multiply this. Then I'm going to add this to whatever's in F8. So whatever I store in F8, I'm going to add right there. And then down here, this is where I'll reset it. So let's see how this works. And then we'll change it over and show you how far this right here will go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download it. And then we'll change it over and show you what's so neat about this guy. I'm going to switch back to run. Okay, then we'll go online. So right now I'm going to just start counting. So my counter is 0. But what I'm going to do, so when I come up here and hit switch 0, okay, it's going to count. But look, every time it gets to 10, what's it going to do? It's going to increment this counter by 1. See that? And then this is going to set it back to what? 0. Okay. Can you see how it works? Okay. So right now we're not gaining anything. Now when I go down here to my add instruction, notice it's got the right answer down there. It's got a decimal point. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go offline and show y'all something really cool. I'm going to change this. Instead of putting 10 right here, I'm going to change it to 10,000. Which is still well within the limit of the counters. They won't overflow there, right? And somehow I don't have the right one in here. I don't think I do. No, I need to add another line. We'll see how this works. So this works the same thing, the same way, right? So notice I'm going to start counting. And notice, I'm going to have to change this a little bit. Notice this guy here is actually doing one. Well, what do you think is going to happen? So now this guy, the second counter, is not going to count until this one gets up to what? 10,000. Are we okay? Huh? Okay. All right. Now notice my multiplier down here automatically changed to, it changed to what? 10,000. Okay. I don't know what happened to my other version, guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to deliberately come in here and put a move instruction. I'll put it right in here. Oh, this one will do it. Keep Logic Pro will insert one in there. Okay. So I'm going to put another switch. Which switch am I using? I'm using 1. I'm not using 2. Huh? Using 1 for run. This goes from these go from 0. So I'm using 1 for reset, and then we'll use 2 to do this. And it looks like I've already identified it. Make sure I'm not using it somewhere else. I'm not. So the label table, I mean the symbol table was okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the move. And another thing that's different, Logic Pro puts the scroll bar buttons on this side, and RS Logic puts them on that side. So. Oops. So I'm going to change my 5:0, and I'm going to load it with, sorry, 9,999. And I'm going to move this into C5:0, which is my 10s, right? My 1. And I'll try to remember to save it. So I'm going to download it. Oops.
Because it's below that number? Because it doesn't start counting till 10,000?
We'll see. Oh, sorry. Good. So it said it needed to be specified to the word counter. We got 4 registers inside counter 5. So I needed to tell it where to put it. And let me make sure it's clear before you do it. Okay, good. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually see how this thing works, which is really, really cool. So what we're doing is we're trying to exceed the counting range of our counters, right? You understand? So now I'm going to be able to go to 10,000 times 10,000. How big a number would that be? Big one. So what we'll do is we'll come up here and we're online, right? And I'm going to start off by hitting switch 3. And then I'm going to count. And what happened to this guy? Okay, so I just counted to 10,000, right? Okay. And when I go down and see what I'm putting in my F8 register, I'm putting what out there? 10,000. So I'm going to hit 3, and we're going to really jump here. So that's 50,000 I've counted to. That's 70,000, 90,000, 100,000, 160,000, 70,000, 200,000. Is that? 300, 400. So I'm just going back and forth from loading it with 999. So that's 500,000. How fast I can go? That's 700,000. It's 900,000. And that's a million right there. So what I've done is I've set up a program so my counters are counting to 10,000 a piece, right? You understand that? But what I'm doing is I'm taking it and multiplying it by, I'm taking the second counter and multiplying it by 10,000. So I'm shifting it over and then I'm adding the 2 counters together. That's all I'm doing. So saying that the counters are limited to this, that's true. But you can use these little tricks to do what? Yeah, to make a counter count. So this counter would count all the way up to the 24th before we exceeded the floating point numbers. And as soon as I exceeded the floating point numbers, then we would lose 1 bit of resolution. Now, Allen Bradley understood that this was still a problem. So what they did after the 504s or the 500 series and the 1000, when they came out with 1100, they added another data file. And that data file is called the long word. So we added another data file. So above the F8, the 11,000s, the 12,000s, the 1,500s, not 12,000, the 1,100s, the 1,200s, the 1,500s, all your 23s. These guys have added a second file called it's an integer file called the L file. So what we do on that one is we get a range, we're F8, before we go into engineer notation, we get a range up to 2 to the 24th, right? This guy right here would get us up to 2 to the 31st. How big is 2 to the 31st? Because it's a signed number. So even though it's 32 bits, the 32nd bit is what? The signed bit. So this would get us all the way up to 2 to the 31st minus 1. Okay. Don't need this anymore. Don't need that anymore. No. Set one. Okay. So what I'm going to do is load. I'm going to save this. Okay. And then we'll load another file in that I call the long word file. So we don't have it on your PLCs that you're using down there. Long word. So this is the same program, but instead of using FA, I'm using what? LN. So this was added by the Allen Bradley. This was added by the 1100 PLCs, and this guy will count all the way up to the 31st before we lose our sign. 2 to the 31st minus 1 for your positive numbers, and 2 to the 31st for your negative numbers. And you can understand because floating point is okay, but as soon as you get past 24 bits, then it's going to start truncating or rounding the number. This guy will go all the way up to 2 to the 31st without rounding. And how big would that be? Anybody did it on their calculator yet? 2 raised to the 31st gets us all the way up to what? 2 billion. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 2,147,483,647 for your positive numbers, 648 for your negative numbers. Pretty neat, right? But you have to have at least a 1100 Micrologic 1100 to get advantage of this. Now, what they've added for these the new ones, this guy. So this guy programs with RS Logic 5000. This is the Compact Logic 23. What this guy here adds, I don't know. It might even add double long words. That's crazy. Okay, what chapter is compare instruction? I'm not going to run this because it does the same thing. Now we're on compare. Where's compare at? I need to leave this open. What chapter is compare? 11. Okay, so that's right. The book I have is chapter 12. So they combine the compare instruction. So what do we mean by compare? Equal to, greater than, less than, right? And so we're going to be dealing with 2 operands. As soon as this guy will load. I hate our network. And I don't mind that it got recorded. Well, that's not the one I want anyway. This is the one I want. It says they revised, right? What I've added that's not in your textbook, and I've tried to upload this, but I made a change in it, is the 504s and the 11,000s have more data files than is available on the 1,000. And what you can do, so here's the ones you can't change or use different ones. So outputs are O's, right? Inputs are I's, status is S. And then we get into our bit file. Now, what they show here is we have, in black, this shows us what is going to, the one that's fixed. And these right here are going to be variable. So what it means is I can use bit file 3, or I can use what? Bit file 9, or bit file 10, or bit file 11, 12, 13, all the way up to what? 255. Also, it says our timers are T4, but now we can also have a what? We can have a T9, a T10, a T11, and of course, what's going to limit you is how much memory. But you can't use 9 here and then turn around and do what? Use 9 there, right? You understand that? Okay. Our counters, 5 is fixed, but I could also use anything between what? 9 to 255, right? We haven't got to this. We'll use this when we get into our shifts and our sequencers and that kind of stuff. So your control file is 6, but we can actually use what? Also use what? 9. The integer 7, but we can also use what? 9. Floating point 8. We can also use what? 9 through that, and I don't have L on here. Oh, I'm sorry.
No file number to be the same.
No. So you can't use 9 because that's what you're doing. You're specifying the location in memory. So if I use 9 for this one, if I use T9, then I can't use N9, right? You understand? So by default, they're set up so you don't do that. So notice 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So originally it was set up so you didn't duplicate numbers. But now that you can duplicate numbers, you're going to have to keep track of that and don't reuse these between what? 9 and 255.
Yeah, if you use a 7 and then an 8, you can't use a 9. You still use either file.
Well, we can't use these. We can't use 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 already, right? Because those are fixed. Go ahead.
Those are fixed, but I mean, even though those are fixed, you can still use a 99999 on each one.
No, you can't. I don't know what you mean by 999. The big thing you got is 255.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to figure that out.
So I can't use.
Because if it's defined by 3, why couldn't you? You know, equal file divided by 3, a timer file divided by 4. Why couldn't you?
I don't know what you mean. Maybe we're not. Maybe I don't.
Maybe I'm not.
So that means if I come up here and I use a T9:0, then I can't use 9 anywhere else. Okay. So if I came down here and I said a C9:0, I just screwed up.
I was under the impression that that's 3, 4, 5, those are fixed numbers.
No, these are not. These are the default. So these are reserved, is what I'm saying. So I cannot use a counter 4 because those are actually reserved for counters, right? You understand? And I can't use, just like I can't use a T5 because file 5 is reserved for timers. But when I get up into this what? This 9 through what? Then all these are available. I just can't do what? Duplicate. This is what they've added to the MicroLogic, and we looked at this. So MicroLogic, and also MicroLogic added what they call a long word. So that's that L file, right? And when we get that L file, we can count, our counters can count all the way up to what? I'm sorry. Your counter ranges are still limited, but your math ranges is where these really come into play. So you can use this L file instead of the F8 file, and now you can keep up with integers up to what? Now, any of your math that has a fraction in it, you got to use F8. So the L is an integer I need to put that. That is an integer. And what's an integer? Where without no fraction. So yeah, if you're going to use, if your add instruction is going to result with a fraction, then you have to use the F8 or F9 or F10 right now. You have to use a floating point.
When you just said counter ranges are still limited, but it's something.
Oh, your counter ranges are still limited to 32,765. I'm sorry, 7 for what?
And that's when you use.
Well, we can use that little program that I showed y'all. And I'll screencast that, by the way, or I might have to shrink it down, but I'll screen capture it and put it up there so y'all can have it for reference if you ever come up and have that problem. So our counters, and it's still limited to what? That's still limited to these. But when you start doing your math, this is where you can get into trouble real fast, like when you multiply, right? You can exceed this in a heartbeat. So normally when we do those math, especially math that has fraction, we'll either use the F8, which is available on the 504s and available on the 1000s, which is what we have down there. But we might use the what? It's L if you're anything above that.
That 5 on this was 255, right?
Oh yeah. Sorry, like I said, I just back up. Yeah, what we're going to do is we're going to use compare instructions to energize a coil. They say coil. This guy uses coil all the time. But we can use the compare instruction to compare to energize any output instruction. So timers, counters, right? Understand? Some of them don't have coils. Cascade compare instructions to set upper and lower limits. By the way, compare instructions are considered to be inputs. So they got to go where? On the L1 side, right? Between L1 and the output instruction. We're going to look at the jump instruction, which allows us to jump over a rung if we make decisions. And we're going to use the jump to label. So this is what we call an instruction pair. So what they mean is you never use a jump without a label. Label is an input. Jump is going to be an output. Label is going to be an input instruction. Jump is going to be an output. Yeah, it's done. Are we okay? So y'all got any questions so far?
So jump is output?
Yeah, jump is an output, so it'll go where? It'll go on L2. The label's going to go on the L1 side. It's usually the first instruction, by the way. In fact, it's not usually. It will always be the first instruction. Okay, let's take a 5-minute break. Then, of course, we're going to get into what we call conditional jump instruction. And what we'll do on a conditional jump instruction is we'll use one of our compare instructions to decide when it's done. Another thing that they talk about, that he wrote about in this chapter, is something called a master control reset or master control relay. And what this is going to do is going to allow us to disable outputs when this guy is false.
The kind of would be the previous letter.
What's that? Well, what the master control relay does, it doesn't disable the scan. It doesn't disable the scan. It strictly disables the output. So the program's still running. It'll still see inputs, it'll still see outputs, but it was similar if you had left that reset true all the time. So this is what's going to happen here. So normally we use these in pairs too. I need to put that in there. So if you put an MCR, then you're going to have another MCR somewhere. The first time it would be considered to be an output instruction. The second time it's considered to be an input. We'll see that when we get there. So here's the compare that the book talks about. So it says equal to. Now what they're talking about A and B is we're going to have two registers inside the compare instruction. We're going to have two registers, and this guy uses registers a lot when we should be using. And so we're going to have one called source A, and we're going to have one called source B. And so it's just like the math instructions, right? Except here, we're not going to have a destination. Source A, source B. Basically all we got. And we enter what we want to compare somehow into those two sources. So how do you think we can do this? We can do it with an address, or we can do it with a constant, or we can do immediate. But we can't do both of them. And the 504 and the 1000s, the 504 and the 1000 tells you exactly what we can do. We'll look at that. So one of them you can't change, one of them you can. We'll look at that. I'll have to go back and look at that myself. So this is right out of the book. They don't show you. This inside the book, but this is the layout that tells us exactly what's available for all these instructions up here. So these are the addressing modes that are available. Immediate for source B. Source A can be either what? Direct or indirect. But source B is what? You can use immediate. I'm sorry. Source A can't use a what? Immediate. So it's got to be what? It's got to be the address. Right? You understand that? Source B can be what? It can be immediate, it can be direct, or it can be indirect. We can't address a bit. You have to address either a word or a long word, right? Understand that? Of course, with your 1000s, you can't do the long word. With 1100s, you can do the long word. This is actually out of 1100. This shows us our parameters. So I can access a what? An output, an input, the status register, bit register, timers. I could an integer file. This can't access this, whatever it is. For the 1100, I could access a long word, right? Understand that? So what's nice about this chart? It shows you everything that's available that you can access these operating systems. No, it's not. It's in the book for the 1100 PSA. So I wanted to show y'all the what's a lot. There's a difference, and these books are out there available to you. They actually show you the amount of scan time it takes for if the rung is true and the rung is false, so you could actually calculate how long your scan time. Then we get into this weird stuff. Then we get to MG, P, RI, so we can address all these guys right here too. And what I've done is I've come over here and tell you what these others are. So ST would be strings, L would be what? Long words. Of course, it's there. M would be message file. PD, now PD would be PID. This is the method that we use, and I need to put parentheses up here. This is the method that we use to control devices that provide feedback. So if I wanted to maintain the speed of a motor, and I wanted to make sure that motor ran at a certain speed, well, how do I know it's running at that speed? So I'm cruising along in my car and I hit cruise, right? And it says 90 miles an hour. How in the world does your computer know your car is going at 90 miles an hour? There's a feedback, there's a sensor out there that tells it I'm going this fast. And if they don't match, then if your car is going too slow, what's it going to do? It's going to automatically speed it up. If it's going too fast, it's going to do automatic. So it's got a sensor in there. The problem is that if we do it that way, if my sensor looks at 90 miles an hour, then your car would be constantly seeking, right? Because as soon as it dropped down to 89, what would it do? speed it up, and of course, what's the car gonna do? It's gonna overshoot. And then it'll go up to what? 91, and then what would it do? Well, I'm going too fast. So this right here tries to get rid of this oscillation. We'll talk about it a little more if you take the troubleshooting class. But these are called PID controllers. It deals with trigonometry, right? Integrals and derivatives, that's trig. Proportional is the one that will overshoot. Routing information, how to send information around between our PLCs, and programmable.
You have message files there, MS, but you point to it up there and it's MG.
Yeah, we've got two
Are
different
either of
places.
them okay to use?
We got the function file. Here, to address it, we use MG. Okay, you understand? To address it, we use MG. So like time. So if we want to address a timer, we use T. So to address a message file, so all your message files are going to start off with MG. Right? So if I wanted to put a message into a file, I'd say like MG:4, right? Or I'm sorry, :9 or something like that, right? So there's no dedicated message file. So this is the way, this is what I would use to address these inside the program. And then these are the actual true functions, the actual files themselves.
And you see right down there where it says message MS.
Yes.
It says MG, that's
Okay, I understand that.
So
I understand what you're trying to tell me.
what.
No, it's fine. Like I said, I just
So that
did.
down there should say MG.
Yes. Like I said, I just did this today. In fact, some of them I did it while Mrs. Wilson was up here lecturing. And this is supposed to be MG, right? Did it put it G? Oh, I got capital locks on. Yeah, well, I got capital locks on from when I was doing MG or Henry. Glad I'm recording this. But where's this information located at?
The book for 11.
Yeah, the book for the 1100. This would be if I wanted to actually address the registers that keep up real-time clock, pulse train output, pulse width modulation, high-speed counters. Interrupts we are going to talk about in this class toward the end. Basically, all this other stuff we just don't have enough time to talk about. We do talk about pulse width modulation in other classes, but we just don't have time to do this. This is a method that we use to control the speed of a DC motor. It's really cool. You can control it digitally. Here's our addressing modes that they support. Immediate, what's immediate? Yeah, the actual operand is part of the instruction. Direct, the operand is located in the specified data file. So if I use N7-100, then that's where the operand is going to be at, right? Y'all understand that? Are we okay? Indirect addressing, this is if the data file contains the address of the operand within that data file. So here it says N7:1, but notice how we specify indirect addresses. We put it in a bracket. Well, it says N7:1. Well, if N7:1 had 15 in it, then this right here would actually be the address of the operand.
But.
What is it?
What do you mean? I'm sorry, I didn't follow what you said after the bracket.
Well, this is where. Okay, so I'm inside brackets, I said N7:1. And here I said N7:1 equals to what?
Okay.
15. So this is the actual content of this address right here. It equals 15.
Oh,
Well, then my operand's address would actually be what? N7:15.
Okay. Yes, I got it now.
Yeah. So these are the addressing modes that's available to us. The book calls these registers, but what I've changed it to is address, the address of it.
well, 15 is that, like, integer think it was just like,
Yeah, it's an integer register. If we use N7, it's gotta be.
saying like 15, like, it was. everybody-
So what I've got is I've got my N7 file out here. Okay, and what I've got in N7 colon 1, I've got the number 15 inside that storage location. Okay, you understand?
Direct you to-
Yeah, so this is why it's called indirect. We're not getting the address from the register, we're getting it indirectly through there, right? You understand? So what we're saying is that, so I could say address. So what I'm saying is that in my instruction, this would be where I use, so up here on source A, I come over here and I say source A, and I put this in there. I put N7 colon 15. That would be in my instruction. Okay, you
Kind
understand?
of reminds me of like a contact relay almost.
Well, sort of. It's like a detour. So that's what we're doing. We're giving you a detour, right? So so they do this all the time. So you're trying to get through here, and they're telling you how to get through there another way. So what we're trying to do is I'm trying to get information, but instead of actually putting the location of the information. So N7 colon 1 is not the operand. It contains, but that address contains the location of the operand. Okay, so I'm saying N7 colon 1. So what your PLC would go out and look at what? Look at this storage location, and it finds a what? 15. Well, then the actual address of the operand would be N715. That's where it would actually get the operand from. So N715. So N715 might have 1,000 in it. Well, what would be loaded? What would be loaded would be 1,000.
What would be the circumstance under which you would need to use the indirect rather than just the direct?
Well, if we wanted to go like through tables. So a table is a group. Well, what I could do every time through that is I could increment this number right here. And then so my first time my offset would be 15, my next time would be 16, the next time would be 17, the next time would be 18. And every time we go through that instruction, what would it do? It would automatically increment through that table, right? You understand? So now we can set up tables, right? You understand? That makes sense. So what we can do with this is we can increment it. We can add 1 to it every time. And if I add 1 to it every time, then what would it automatically do? The next time we come through, it would automatically go to the next address. This guy right here, I can't do that. This is always going to be what? 100. This is not going to always be 100. This is going to be whatever gets in that location right there. How does it get in that location right there? Well, it could be the results of a math operation. So if I come up with, my answer comes up to be 53, then I could send myself into register 53, right? You understand? And now it contains information of what happened when that happened, right? You understand that? So what's nice about this register right here? What can I do with this right here? It could be, I could change it, yeah. So this right here could be a variable. So I could store the results of a math operation. I could restore the results of a logic operation. And then I would automatically jump within the table depending on the other results. With direct addresses, this is the guy right here. It would always be what? But this guy right here, I can do what? I can change it. Yeah, so that indirect addressing gives us real flexibility on going through tables, making decisions on the results of other operations. So it's really, really powerful.
Right, let's start with the bracket total.
Yeah, with the brackets. So what I would do right here, so the first one I would say source A. I would say source A, and out here if I put N7 colon 100, then that's it. If I put it inside brackets, that tells the PLC I'm using what we call indirect addressing. So now we're getting the address of the operand from a storage location that I can do what? I can change, yeah.
And the difference between immediate and direct?
Immediate would be source A. So immediate, well, I would say source A, and then out here I'd put 533. That is not an address. That is the operand, right? You understand? So immediate addressing is the operand. The operand is part of the instruction. Now, what is the operand? What is an operand? And you're going to see this all the time through these manuals that come with the PLC. They don't say number. They say operand. This is the operand. What is the operand? Well, that is the actual numbers that instruction is operating on, right? You understand? Not addresses, not any. It's the actual numbers that instruction operates on. When the PLC is scanning a ladder diagram, sometimes one or more rungs should be scanned. When a rung is not scanned, state of the instructions on the rung remains the same. Condition for skipping over these rungs can be generated, and this is what they're going to talk about, the jump. But we'll get to that. So this is the equal. Now, what I've done, the book says A must contain a register, and that's false. A must contain an address. You understand that? So if we look what's required, when I look at A has got to be an address. Huh? Oh yeah. So A has got to be an address. It's got to be the address of an operand. So A has got to be an address, right? You understand that? So if you put the number up there in A, then odds are RS Logic's going to put an E over there that you're not going to be able to walk. You're not going to be able to clear, right? You understand? So A has got to be an address, and it can either use what? Direct or immediate. Your book says it's got to be a registry. And that's not exactly true. Okay, you understand? So A must be an address. B can either be an address or the address of an operand. According to 1100, I think this is wrong too. Let me get that. So this is the what? Equal instruction. So your compare instructions are what? Inputs or output? Input. And then what you want to do when this becomes true, you put over here. But this don't have to be an output. It could be an add instruction. It could be any of your output instructions, right? You understand? It can be over here on the right-hand side. Everybody okay? So what are they doing here? What address and mode are they specifying here? What address and mode? Register, right? I'm sorry, direct. So this is going to take whatever's in N7:0. It's going to compare it to N7:1. If they're equal, this run's going to be what? True. If they're not equal, the run's going to be what? False. Are we okay? This is the what? EQ, this is what? So just ignore the final thing. Not equal to. Source A must be an address. Source B can either be an address or an operand. Or immediate addresses, right? Of course, on all their examples, they're using direct addresses, right? These address modes came right up for microprocessors, by the way. Less than. So here, if NF7, so did I do? I didn't do that. So tell me what's going to happen here. So that means if the contents of N7:0 had, if it equal to 1, and N7:1 equal to 3, what would happen here? That wrong would be true. Because they're what? They're not equal. That makes sense? Everybody okay? Now if I come in here, and the N7:0 equal 1, N7:1 equals 3, what would this be? Huh? Would it be false? Why? Y'all understand this thing right here? So when we say less than, A is the guy that's on the left, right? You understand? B is the guy that's on the right, right? You understand? So it's saying it's A less than B. That's true. So this wrong would be true, right? You understand that? And I know, and what this thing right here, it points to which one is, yeah. So whatever's on this side, this is the one that it's looking for to be the biggest, right? You understand that? So we say this. Are we okay? Okay, so what would happen here? So here's N7 colon 0 equals 1, and N7 colon 1 equals 3. So what would this be? Is A
not greater
greater than D?
than B.
No. Is A greater than D, right? No, A is less than D, right? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, okay. Yes, no.
You're just writing that there, that has nothing to do with the numbers right there, right? You're just asking.
What do you mean the numbers? There's no numbers.
Right.
I'm showing you what's stored in these addresses right now. So N7 colon 0, this is direct addressing. This is going to be A. Whatever I put in N7 colon 1, this is going to be B. So what I'm doing over here is I'm telling you what's in these storage locations. Right? You understand? I'm just making these up. This is where it came from.
Yeah.
That makes sense? So this says what? It's A greater than B. Huh? A is 1. B would be what? 3. So this one would be false. This makes sense?
Yeah.
This says what? So I'm just going to say A is equal to, this might be better, A is equal to what? 1, B is equal to 3. So instead of writing the storage locations. But y'all understand where this came from, right? So if A is less than or equal to B, if A is less than or equal to B, right? Okay. So is A less than? Sure. So this would be what? So A is equal to 1, B is equal to 3. So this says if A is greater than or equal to B. Is A greater than? No. Is it equal to?
No.
No. So this would be what? False. Good guys. Now this is what they're showing us here. They're showing us we can do what? We can combine them to set up a range. Right? You understand? Yes or no? So what does that mean? So let's say, so this is so look, here it's saying if N7 colon 0 is what? Okay. So what I've got, tell me what I've got. So down here we're using immediate address and this says 100. This says 50. So somebody tell me how this is going to work.
We need a sum or a number for.
No, we don't need, we could, but just tell me how it's going to work. I can give, huh? Well, your grader's got to come first. Y'all understand if you're going to do this, your grader's got to be on the left and your left stand's got to be equal to right or it never becomes true.
So in the first one, that it's got to be greater than 100.
Right.
For it to be true.
True.
And the second one, it's got to be less than 150 to be true.
Right.
And then
so let's say I have 99. What's going to happen? This right here is going to be false. This guy right here is going to be what? True. But I can't get through. So this guy's going to block our signal. This guy looks like it's going to let it go through. So this right here is going to be what? It's going to be false. Okay, so let's go to 100. This one's going to be true, and this one's going to be true. So this whole rung is going to go what? True. And then I keep going, all the way up till I get up to 149. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought the equal sign was there. You're right. Thank you. I thought I saw the equal sign.
So if it was 99.
If it was 99, this guy here would be false. This guy right here would be what? True. So the rung itself would be what? False. If I go to 100, this is still going to be what? false. This right here is still going to be what? True. So the rung would be what? As soon as I go to 101, what's going to happen? Now this guy's going to turn what? True. This guy's still true, so the whole rung is going to become what? True. Then we keep going. Let's say we get up to 149. This right here would still be what? True. This right here would still be true, right? You understand? And the rung would still be what? True. Okay. Let's say I go up to 150. Yeah, this guy turns false because, yeah. So this guy right here, yeah, because this is greater than that. This guy would turn false and the rung. So this would be true between what? 101 up to what? 149. So what we can do is we can set the range of where a rung is true. That makes sense.
But those numbers have nothing to do with the counter or the accumulated.
Well, it's going to have something to do, it's going to have something to do with something, right? It's going to have something to do with something. Sure, I could make
But I mean, the source A and the, forget it. I don't
yeah,
know.
but here, they, by the way, it didn't put the A. This could be counter 5:0.ACC, right? And this could be N7, right? Y'all understand? It could be the timer. It could be the accumulator on a timer, right? You understand that? And that's what it showed y'all when we went back to that thing. What can it be, guys? I mean, those things can be what? Anything that's down that line right there. It could be an output, not an output bit, an output. Y'all know how to address a whole 16-bit output, right? Did I show you how to do that? Yeah, so what would I put? So if I put output 0, right, you understand, colon 0, I'm sorry, output 0, then this is going to give me the whole word, right? Y'all understand that? That would give me the whole word. So these have got to be word addresses. They can't be what? They can't be bit addresses. And that's what it tells you right here. So I can't do what? I can't address this to the what? Bit level. I could address an input to the word level, status, but B3, B whatever they are, timers, counters. And then I can access any of those 16-bit registers inside the timer. How many 16-bit registers do we have inside the timer? We got, how many inside a timer? We have the accumulator, right? We have the preset register, right? Understand that? So those are the what we have available to us, right? So we can address all these things, which is pretty neat. So that this guy always uses, and these guys right here, they can be what? So here I could say timer 4:0, and I can compare it .acc. You got to specify that. Then I can compare it to C5, right? :1.acc. Y'all understand that? You can compare it to a timer. You can compare it to a register. You can compare it any 16-bit that it showed up there. Then I can come out there, but it's got to be compared to the word level. That makes sense. So here he's he's just using direct addresses, right? You understand? But we got not only this, we can direct address these registers. Now these are registers, by the way. Are we okay? So in this lab, I forgot which lab it was. I'll look it up. Some of y'all are not quite. We probably won't have time to do lab today because we're going to take the test after lunch. But what we're going to do here, this is a Logic Pro lab. Gosh, I hope I put it in here. Okay, we're So this is the basically way you're gonna the lab's gonna be set up, but you gotta have two things you can compare. So this is what Christine was talking about. What am I looking here? I don't use what?
That's what your preset number is, but it's not gonna count up with those direct numbers and the indirect, instructions,
What do you
is
think?
what I was talking about.
Okay.
That's right.
Well,
Continue what we.
Yeah, so down here, notice what I'm doing is I'm taking, this, right? You understand? And to make it look like the book, I don't have to do this. To make it look like the book, the second thing I do is do what? But I store it in what? In 7 in colon 1. Now I'm doing this to make it look like the book. I could have what? Yeah, I could have moved it directly in. I could have came directly from the accumulators, right? You understand that? That makes sense? Here we're going to do it automatically. You don't have to have an input instruction. So what happens instantly, as soon as I change my counters, these two guys right here are going to move, right? You understand? So you don't necessarily have to have an input. If you want something to happen instantly, you can just do it without an input. So as soon as this guy here scans, what's it going to do? It's going to do this instantly, right? So when I download this, guys, so we'll start off with both these guys equal to 0. Here I have my equal. Here I have my not equal. Here I have my less than. Here I have my greater than. Here I have my less than or equal to. Here I have my greater than. And then I can reset my counters down here. So as soon as I upload this thing and switch to run, which one of these are going to be true? Huh? Equal to is going to be true. Is less than going to be true? Well, I'm going right down what I'm doing is I'm going right down the figures the way they are in the book. Okay, y'all understand that? And what I wanted to do this, I wanted you, I don't have my book up here. 243. Okay, so right now, guys, let's figure out which one. Right now, I have 0 in both and why I did it this way is so we could do this, so you could actually look in your book and look through these and figure out which ones are going to be what, true, and which one is going to be false. Okay, so I'm starting off with what in my counters? 0. So my N7 0 is going to be 0, and my N7 1 is going to be equal to 0 as soon as I upload this and run it, right? So which ones are going to be true?
Only the first one.
So is equal to going to be true? Okay. Is not equal to going to be true? Is less than going to be true? Is greater than going to be true? Is less than or equal to going to be true? Yes. Is greater than or equal to going to be true? Yes. Right? Y'all understand that? So all these should be true. So I'm going to come up here. All three of those, yeah. I should have said that instead of all. So what I have is of course I had a start, stop. Okay. So did I download it? Yeah, I did. I'll do it just then we'll switch to run. And then I've got I got a start, stop, master, start, stop in here. Oops. For some reason on Logic Pro, you got to cycle your normal code switch. Okay, so it's filled in. Okay, so equal to is what? True. Okay. Not equal to is what? False. Less than is what? False. Greater than is what? False. Less than or equal to is true, and greater than or equal is true. Y'all did a real good job. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come over here on this counter right here, which is, I'm using switch 3 over here. And let's put a 1 in, just put a 1 in there. Okay. So we got a 1 in this counter, we got a 0 in that counter. Which ones are going to be true? Okay, but equal to is going to be false, right? Are we okay? Okay, that's true. We're too far. Not equal is gonna be what? True. Because they're what? Not equal. Less than is gonna be what? False. Greater than is gonna be what? True. Right? You understand that. Less than or equal to went to what? False. But greater than and equal to is still what? True. And you gotta understand, anything I can make these decisions on anything, any output instruction. We okay? I changed one of
I
them.
just wasn't sure, I knew you had changed it, but I didn't.
Okay, so what we're gonna do now, we'll come up here and hit switch one. Okay, so now they both have what? So both these registers have what? One in them. So what's gonna happen? Equal to. Oh, I'm sorry.
You didn't move the C5.
Oh, yeah. So that's the problem we have. Thank you. Now, what would happen if I did this in RS Logic? Yeah, I would have got an error, and then if we looked at the error, it says it needs to be specified to the word level, right? So equal to is what? True. So what should the less than be? Should be false, right? Or not equal to, I'm sorry. Less than is what? False. Less than or equal, greater than is false. Less than and equal to is true, and the greater than or equal to is true. Okay? So what we'll do now is do what? In case counter B, to go one above. Okay. So what's going to be true now? Equal to is false, right? Greater than is true, because B is greater than A, right? So when we say greater than, we're talking about, it's pretty easy. You're talking about B, right? Because A is what we're comparing it to. So if I say greater than, it means if B is greater than A. If I say less than, it means if B is less than A, right? You understand that? Yes? Okay. Good. What's the next one in the book? Less than is true. So we're saying is what A less than B, right? Greater than. Okay, it's false. Less than or equal to is true, and greater than and equal to is false. And then we can combine these guys, and we can do some neat stuff. The program that I wrote, I know it's almost time for lunch, so I need to save this, don't I? Because I did find some errors for me. And I don't know if y'all remember the first of the semester, I had the motor hooked up here, and it would run forward for a certain amount of time, then it would stop for a certain amount of time, and then it would come up and run for a certain amount of time. So I won't let you know this. Of course, I got no option now.
You're still coming back to do the test?
We're gonna be in there.
lab?
The PLC lab. No, what we're gonna do, we're not gonna do a lab today. We're gonna take a test. Right.
And then when we just leave when we're done.
Yes. And then Thursday, We'll come in here, we'll go over the test. We'll see if y'all got any problems, and then we'll go to the lab. By the way, Nancy's gonna be in here with us Thursday if something else don't happen.
Something else happened?
Do you know what lab we're gonna be doing?
What happened?
We're still working on, the,
In one.
FIM one, which is the,
Move instruction. Oh, no, the adding, the math.
the math.
The math.
And then we'll do one or two of the compares. I'll have to go and look at. We're gonna do the compare just like we did, the math instructions, where you're gonna put all the compares on one program, just like I did, right? So that. So basically, that's what you're gonna do. That, you'll do that same lab, but then we'll move into some more advanced compare instead of just doing that. Are we okay? This is one program I ran that would reverse an AC motor. And what it would do is it would come up here and so how many timers do I have? One. So what I did was I wanted the motor to run forward for a certain amount of time, and then I wanted it to stop, but we call it plugging a motor. Most motors don't like to be plugged. Plug means going from forward to reverse without letting the motor come to a stop. And I know some of y'all's had ceiling fans, and when you reverse that thing, what does that sucker do? It goes because it's pulling all that current trying to change directions. So normally what we do is when we stop a motor, we give it amount of time to do what? Stop. And then what we would do is we reverse it. And this is just a looping program. So what I want to do is I want it to run forward for a certain amount of time. I want it to stop I want to stop it and give it time to do what? Stop. And then I'm going to reverse it for a certain amount of time. And then I'm going to do what? Then I'm going to stop it again, wait, and then go forward. How many timers does that take? One. How could I do that with one timer? Yeah, compare. So look, I'm loading my timer with a big number, right? You understand? And then I'm saying, okay, if it's equal to 60, if it's less than or equal to 60, then do what? Run the motor forward, right? By the way, I've got this blown up so it's easy to see. So the ladder don't actually do that. Yeah, but what it'll do is it'll let you blow them up, and what it'll do, it makes it bigger, but it won't fit on the outputs won't fit anymore. So what does RS Logic do?
You said is the only thing that can be on to the right or between a. Not.
What's that?
No.
No, overloads are not in a PLC diagram. There is no such thing as a PLC that has an overload in it. What we would do with our output is we would turn on a motor starter, and the motor starter has the overload in it.
I was thinking of the magnetic. Yeah.
So what's this going to do? This is going to run it for 60 seconds, right? You understand? Then it's going to do what? Stop it between 70 and do what? 130? I'm sorry. Something's wrong. Okay. Huh? Yeah, we have a 0.1 multiplier on here. I mean, I'm sorry, we have yeah, this is written around the 1000s. So the 1000 is so cheap that most of the stuff is fixed. So what you'll notice on the 1000s is when you go to your time base, I'm almost sure the only time base available is what? 1. If you're on the 504s, then you'll get a 0.1, you'll get a 0.01, you'll get a 0.001. So the 504s are a lot wider. So I can't download this into this PLC. Why is that? Well, no, this program is written for the 1000. So it'd come up right off the bat and tell me that I've got the wrong processor selected for the program. Way down here at the bottom. So it's going to reset itself. So when timer 4 gets done, what does it do? Resets itself. Then it comes back up here and does what? Starts back up in the forward. stops it, reverses it, right? Then does what? Then reset. So, huh? Well, this was on the this was on the 1000s, and the 1000s don't really have a true stop. They don't have a stop button. You have to use the what? Yeah. So I didn't want to use that. So I wanted to hit one button to start it and one stop it. So this is not legal. Y'all see what Thomas is talking about? So that means I'm using a normally open push button for a stop light. So if I pull the wire out, guess what? It's not. But that's okay. I can unplug it. Are we okay? So good catch. Any more? All right, guys. See y'all down at where we're going to meet after lunch. Take the what? Test.
12:30.
12:30.